Alexandria Eikelboom is graduating with a Bachelor of Arts, 4 years, with 2 majors, Biblical and Theological Studies and Psychology.
Good afternoon. Much of this last academic year of my undergraduate degree has been spent writing an undergraduate thesis on the presence of the therapeutic relationship in the church. But what I would like to do for you this afternoon is to talk briefly about something that I've learned growing out of that project, although I won't be connecting it for you explicitly. A lot of my work has depended on and considered how it is that Christians think about or should be thinking about ethics. We often think about it as the study of which actions are considered right or wrong according to what we believe to be true about human beings in general or in particular situations. There are some theologians and ethicists, though, who have recently reminded us that the important thing for ethics, especially for Christians, is not the rightness or wrongness of actions in the abstract, but the kind of people that we're trying to be, or in our case, the kind of people that God commands us to be. The fact is that this way of thinking about ethics was far more natural to people in ancient and medieval times, but it is nevertheless important for us to relearn today, lest our formation through discipleship and our attention to God be replaced either with a legalistic formula or with our own personal ideas about what is right or wrong. Now, one of the most interesting things to me in all of this has been the fact that if we are thinking about ethics in terms of becoming the sort of people that God commands us to be, or Christian, if you like, we can think about a whole lot more than simply performing the right actions. Part of what this means is that our ethics, or what it means to be the people of God, extends not only to the things that we do, but also, in some ways, to the things that we make. One of the characteristic things about humans is that we make things that are different than ourselves. We make physical works of art, but we also make performances or ideas or traditions or ways of thinking even as whole groups of people. Who we are as the people of God extends to all those things, and in attending to God, we're able to make things that help us attend to God better and emulate Jesus further. So ethics is not only a matter of following God's goodness, but also a matter of making things that point us to God's beauty, thereby drawing us to God himself. There is therefore an aesthetic and poetic aspect to our ethics, because in attending to God, we are attending to beauty itself. And as this beauty draws us to himself, we are made more like him. Another way of putting that is that we're ethically formed. In this way, even our actions, the things we usually associate with ethics, are a complex interrelationship between making things and doing things. They point beyond themselves to both the beauty and the goodness that they emulate. As Christians, we therefore strive to cultivate not only a good character and soul, but also a beautiful one. Learning to follow Jesus is in some ways sort of like learning to paint. We try to emulate the painter and his paintings that have come before us, but we always at the same time end up reappropriating those paintings according to our own situation, and hopefully according to the Holy Spirit. In this way, God's beauty reveals itself in our particular actions as we are learning to act through attending to and emulating Jesus. Ethics is not only about goodness, it is also about beauty, because humans do not only do, they also make. And sometimes the distinction between these two is not so obvious. In any event, questions of ethics, of being a Christian, extend to what we make as well as what we do. And one of the reasons that it's important to remember the aesthetic dimensions of ethics is that we are thereby encouraged to remember the beauty of God, and that in becoming the people of God, we are responding, in part, to his beauty. One of my favorite theologians that I have been introduced to here at CMU is Karl Barth, and I would like to end with one of his statements as to the importance of God's beauty as the shape of his glory that draws us to himself, partly because I think that Barth's work is itself an example of an ethical making that is an aesthetic appropriation of God's beauty, and that is to say that even if you don't understand everything that Barth is saying in this quote, even just listening to the way that he writes can be very beautiful and very helpful. So this is what he says. God is also beautiful, beautiful in his love and freedom, beautiful in his essence as God, and in all his works beautiful, that is, in the form in which he is all this. We cannot overlook the fact that God is glorious in such a way that he radiates joy, so that he is all he is with and not without beauty. Otherwise, his glory might well be joyless. This must not on any account be neglected. Where it is neglected and the legitimate answer to joy is not appreciated and his glory itself is not really perceived, inevitably, when the perfect divine being declares itself, it also radiates joy in the divinity and power of its divinity, and thus releases the pleasure, desire, and enjoyment of which we have spoken, and is in this way, by means of this form, persuasive and convincing. And this persuasive and convincing form must necessarily be called the beauty of God.